Well, welcome to this week's ATL Home and Market. I'm Ira Miskin. I am the broker and team leader for Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and also with the Miskin Team. And with me today, as every week, is my partner in crime and co-team leader, Stephanie Miskin.
Hello.
And joining us this week, because this is going to be a really special program where we do some good inside information talk about buying and selling homes in this particular summertime market, is our senior team advisor and associate broker, Josh Guallett. And we're going to dig into some things that I think are going to be useful and helpful. And we're just going to anticipate what the summertime market is going to look like this year, which is different than in years past. But before we do that, because it's definitely the summer, I think it's 90 plus degrees today, which is pretty cool for me, but terrible for everybody else. Stephanie's going to give us some fun things to do in Metro Atlanta that you can do when it's 90 degrees out. What do you got today, Steph?
All right. Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff covering a bunch of counties and then some. So I'm going to kind of run through them and try to get it all in my allotted time. So starting June the 19th and running through the end of March, there's some really great events that are going to be happening in Cobb, Cherokee, Gwinnett, and Fulton. It really shows off the very varied lifestyles that you can have in Metro Atlanta. We're going to start in Cobb County, and in Cobb County, the NAACP Juneteenth celebration, that's going to be from June 19th to the 21st at the Marietta Square in Glover Park. There's going to be music, food, vendors, cultural programming, and there's going to be a Father's Day tribute. So it's going to be a great reminder that Marietta Square is more than restaurants and shops. It's really a true community gathering place. So if you're in that part of the world, try to check that out. And also in Cobb County, the following weekend, June 20th through the 27th, is Cobb Foodie Week. And this is a fun excuse to try all the restaurants all around Marietta, Smyrna, Kennesaw, Ackworth, and beyond. And really, restaurants matter. When people are thinking about where they want to live, where they want to move, you're always thinking about what are some good restaurants that we can go out to eat at and not have to travel all the way far away to get some dinner. So that's going to be going on the 20th through the 27th. In Cherokee County, we have a little different thing going on. That's going to be the Georgia Outdoor Festival and Expo. That's going to be June the 20th and the 21st at the Cherokee Veterans Park in Canton. And this is perfect for families who love the outdoors, who love camping, fishing, hiking, biking, and all kinds of outdoor living. And that will be, stuff to buy, stuff to try out, see what you like. So that's going to be going on the 20th and the 21st. And also on the 20th in Canton, there's going to be a concert, the River Rock concert at Etowah River Park. And that's going to be featuring a band called Pandora's Box. And it's going to be an Aerosmith tribute band. So that's what's happening in Cherokee. If we go over into Gwinnett, there's some great options. I think this will be wonderful for the kids. I've never been, but I've always wanted to go, is the Universal Circus. It's a circus at Gwinnett Place Mall in Duluth. So it's an indoor event with multiple shows. Downtown Duluth has a Rotary Club car show, another great thing for the kids and for dads, on June the 20th. And Swanee has a big June 27th Community Day with farmers markets and a 5K run. And they're going to do a World Cup community watch party in the evening. So that's sort of a great snapshot of what's going on in Gwinnett, family events downtown, a lot of international culture. Now, if we go into Fulton County, the Juneteenth Atlanta Run is June 19th through the 21st at Piedmont Park, with a parade on June the 20th. And of course, Atlanta has the World Cup going on. So that will be on the 21st, the 24th, the 27th. It's going to be a huge regional event. Lots of stuff going on in Atlanta itself, in Fulton County. Now, if none of that stuff says anything to you and you're thinking, you know what, it's really hot, I want to get out of the city, go up to Blue Ridge, Georgia. You could get mountain views, there are great cabins, there's downtown shops. You can get a pontoon boat on Lake Blue Ridge. There's beautiful waterfalls that you can visit. And it's only about an hour, maybe 90 minutes from Marietta. So I tried to give you some different ideas, whether you were in the city or you wanted to escape the city or the suburbs. And so that's what I have for you this week.
Very cool. Very cool. Good stuff to do inside, outside, and always, which is my favorite, food. See?
Yep.
Lots of food.
Yeah, that one would be a good one for you.
Yes. Very good. So while you're contemplating where you want to go to have a good time and have dinner, you're probably also contemplating where you want to live. Sometimes it might be close to where you want to go have dinner and have a good time. But wherever it is, and if you're thinking about both buying a home, but also if you're thinking about selling a home and you're selling a home because you want to buy another, whether you're downsizing to a smaller house or you're going to be moving up to a bigger home because life has expanded, there was this, I don't know, psychology or mentality that came about that sort of came with everybody being afraid to go outdoors and to move and to sell, which came with COVID. In 2020 and 2021, the marketplace was just raveled up in all kinds of worries and concerns, and there were very few homes on the market. But for the people who were buying, the interest rates were really low. You could get an interest, a loan on a home for as little as 2.5%, right, Josh?
At least 2.5%. Yeah, 2.5. I got one in for several clients.
You got one too.
Oh yeah, me too.
It was one of his own clients.
Your own client.
And people ask me, will we ever get back to that again? I said, if we ever get back there again, we have other problems going on. Like something bad's going on if we ever get back there again. So yeah.
And that was the result of the nuttiness of the crash that happened in 2008, 2009, 2010, where the federal government basically made the cost of money zero so that banks could actually give loans at a very low percentage and still make money when they gave those loans. Fast forward to today. Just a couple of years ago, literally a year ago, the average sale price in Metro Atlanta for a home was right around $420,000, $417,000. Today, the average sale price is $100,000 higher all around Metro Atlanta. That makes it more difficult to find a house that you're looking for if your household budget is still the same. But what makes it even tougher is that instead of the average interest rate on a home loan being, around 3%, today the average interest rate was 6.45%. That's more than double the amount. So when you start to look at what it is you're paying for a home and what your monthly budget has to be based on all of the expenses, including now double the interest rates, buyers are really thinking much more clearly and with greater interest about budget and cost and how to make all of this work while they're paying more for a home. Now, sellers, a lot of sellers still think it's 2021. And they don't want to fix their house up, and they want more money than the house is worth, and they don't care what the interest rates are because there are very few homes for sale. And today, the statistic is that there's 61% more homes on the market than there was in 2021. Again, that's one of the things that completely changes the way in which buyers and sellers have to look at how the marketplace is going to work. Now, Josh, you run into this all the time as you're talking with sellers about how to begin planning for the sale of the home. And I guess the first thing that you really want to know is, why are they selling? Why is that important?
I mean, that's always going to be the most important because, so again, like we were saying a second ago, I have a 2.5% interest rate, and I like to joke that, for me to give up my 2.5% interest rate, I'm going to be carried out on the buyback. Not for me to do that, to give that up. So there has to be a big enough reason for someone to do that, to make that decision. And so it's very rarely the next house. It's usually it could be a family situation, it could be a job situation, but there has to be a big enough reason of why to do anything, because you're giving up a lot, even for the people that bought homes, and refinanced to a 2.5 or 2.75 or 3% or 4%. They still are giving up a lot. So you need a good motivating factor for them to make that decision in the first place.
And once they've determined why it is that they sell, what are some of the key things that you start with, the big picture items that you start with as they think about the plan for, if I'm going to sell my home, where am I going to go next? Am I going to live in a bottle? Or am I going to live in a condominium? Or am I going to move to Kansas? What are the big things that start to shape that conversation?
So the first thing I do is I kind of ask, what you need to be near. Are there any things that you have to be near? Perfect example. I had this one client, and he's retired Bell South when Bell South still existed before they get absorbed by another company, I think AT&T. But anyway, he said that with his retirement, he only could go to Kaiser Permanente doctors. And back when I was working with him, there wasn't a common Kaiser Permanentes all over Georgia. There were, very select places. So we knew we had to be in this part of Atlanta. There was no way to get around that. He needed to be within a certain mile radius of Kaiser Permanente, and there was very select. So I look for anything like that first. Also, when if they bring up things like children, do they immediately plan on going private? The people that are thinking private schools, they usually tell me very often and very quickly that we're going to go private school. So it removes some of the burden of where you're going to be. But if you want public schools, and then a good public school, they're going to help. They're really going to start telling me, and I send them the information. I send them the websites to kind of review, and they start really dictating where do they want their kid to go. And it's weird too, when it comes to things like that. It's because there are some places and some schools that may have very bad overall scores, and then they'll have a really, really great program, one specific program that they want their kid. That kid wants to be an actor or an actress. That kid wants to be, in the orchestra. May have a horrible scores with everything else, but that's where they want to be. Or a special education program that I've had that conversation a lot. And there's certain bus routes. It's a really big situation. It's really important to know why they're doing it, because we can start connecting the dots from there and helping them connect the dots from there.
So therefore, the seller, once you help them to frame out why they're moving, what they need, what are the requirements when they do move, how those requirements impact on why they're moving, and start to get a sense of what's important to them, then you have to kind of back off a little bit.
Yep.
And deal with the plan,
Yes.
which starts with the money.
Yeah. So the conversations I have are, okay, we've gone through the motivating factors of why are we having a conversation in the first place? We go through that. Okay, what are the factors they need in order to be happy with their next step? And not just happiness for that one individual, but for the entirety of the family. And after that, we have to look at, okay, what are the steps needed in order for an in order for them to get there. So do they need to sell their home in order to qualify or to purchase the next property? Do they have money in place where they don't need to sell their home, which, we can go ahead and we sell their home after they've already moved? We actually even have a program where they can buy their home before they sell their current home. So if they're in a situation where they really need to get to the next place faster, or they don't want to take the hassle, or people don't like people walking through their house. I don't care who it is. No one likes people walking through their house when they live there. So if someone doesn't like the idea of someone cleaning up the house before they rush out and someone else shows the property or looks at the property, we have programs that allows them to go ahead and go to the next house, focus on living at the next house, and this current home will sell the home after they've already moved out. So in figuring out what they need, we then figure out, okay, what do they need to do to achieve that? And we figure out what we need to do in order to make that happen.
And there's always, because Stephanie and I have had this conversation multiples of hundreds of times. I want, my house is worth $400,000 and I won't take a penny less. I want what I want. And that's the interesting thing, is that you can want what you want. And sometimes what you want is accurate, but very often what you want has nothing to do with what the market is willing to pay. How many times have we bumped into that, Steph?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe a lot.
Well, it kind of works.
People have an emotional attachment to their house, and a lot of times they don't. There's a reality, which is the numbers, and then there's the emotional attachment and the fantasy of what they think their house is worth. And to get those two to match sometimes is difficult. But, their motivation to move has to be strong enough to get them over that hump. I mean, ultimately, that's it. You can think your house is worth, $400,000 when it's really worth $325,000, all you want. But if you really want to move closer to your grandkids, or you really want to downsize and you want to get into a ranch, you're not going to do it at 400. You're going to do it at 325 or thereabouts. So you have to make, you have to tell people things they don't necessarily want to hear and make them understand the reality of the situation.
And whenever I have that conversation, I always think about, appraisal value versus market value.
Right.
Appraisal value is what's in, let's just say the Kelley Blue Book, or what's in that number out there that they say the home is worth. No one's giving you that money, but they say the home is worth. But the market value is, okay, what if someone actually willing to hand you? What if someone willing to actually hand you and say, I will take this off your hands and walk away?
Right.
I talk to some clients a lot of times, especially younger clients, the first time home buyers, and they have all these people giving advice and telling them, do this, do that, do that. And I always, at a certain point, and I let it slide for a little while, but at a certain point I say, only listen to the people that will pick you up at 3:00 in the morning on a random Tuesday. Only listen to people that will give you money. And, hey, I can't make that deal happen for whatever reason. Listen to that person. Everyone else just has an opinion. And opinions are like other things. So I'm not going to get into.
That's a good one, Josh.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to live in reality. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody has one.
Oh, I do the other. I know the other.
Yes. I want to keep it clean. Let's see, that bridge between what the market is willing to give you, which is what the market is willing to pay, and it's how buyers are shopping these days for homes. It's not like, oh my gosh, look, one finally came up. Let's get an offer in before somebody else grabs it. That's not the way it is. The market is a much more, what we like to say, normal market, where there's a reasonable number of homes in every category, in the prices, and with more or less the features that you want. And so now you have to shape your home so that your home appeals to the people with the money. Because if you want $400,000, you need somebody that can give you that $400,000. Otherwise, if you didn't need the $400,000, you just move on. See, so now it becomes a question of how do we really design the way the home is presented to buyers, and what are the things that we need to do to give buyers from the first moment they look at the first photograph of your house online, how do they immediately say, this is a pretty nice house? They only want $400,000, as opposed to, this is not a bad house, but they want $400,000 for that. Click, and they move on to the next. So what are the things that we do? And there's a lot, everything from our certified pre-owned home program to, really doing deep dives on how to cut these 6-foot tall weeds that are in your backyard down and turn it into a wonderful play spot for, Fido. When you look at a property, Josh or Steph, and you do that analysis of what the property is like right now, what's the starting point, and what are the tools that you can pull out of your kit bag that give the seller the capability of bringing their house not just up to standard, but to a point where when buyers look at it, their first statement about the house is, gosh, that's a pretty nice house, and that's a good price for that house. As opposed to, that's a pretty nice house, but there's 4 others just like it, and they're less money.
Mhm.
So what do you do? Where do you start, guys?
I always start at the outside because that's going to be their first impression. So, a lot of times when I was showing property, they'd pick out a house online. We look at the pictures and we drive up, and the house outside was a wreck, and they wouldn't even want to go in.
Oh, such a waste of a drive. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, you'd have to force them to go into the house because the outside was a wreck. So I always believe that, you have to start with the outside. You have to start with the curb appeal and the landscaping. And, does the house need to be power washed? I sold a house to somebody a while ago, and I saw the house recently, and it was vinyl siding, and the whole house needs to be power washed, and the weeds need to be cut down. Things like that are not, those aren't major, but I always say, let's start there and then move into the inside. And I think you agree, right, Josh?
100%. 100%. People don't want to walk into new people. They don't want to walk into an old person's problem. They don't want to walk into the seller's problems. They don't want to walk into the seller's weeds or the seller's, dirty siding. They don't want to start with, this is a project.
They don't want to start with, this as a project. Absolutely. Unless the price is so ridiculously cheap that they know it's a project.
Right. And even then they try to lowball. They'll try to lower the numbers. So it's in your best interest to get them to want to walk through the front door. Let's just start.
And it's a great idea to do that. Have the house inspected. Try to convince these sellers, look, you need a home inspection to come in here, and let's look at everything so that we know exactly. Because I can look at a furnace and not know it looks okay, but it doesn't mean that the furnace is in good shape or the furnace needs to be cleaned. So let's get some preliminary inspections done on the house for things that we can't see. The things that we can see, if we go in there and we can say, look, you've got to depersonalize it. You have to unclutter it. You have to get rid of some of the furniture. You need to maybe replace the carpeting, things like that. We can see that. We can suggest that. We can even give them some folks that can help them get this done. But then it's a matter of a budget. You have to create a budget for them and say, all right, so this is what it's going to take to get your house cleaned up and ready to go to market.
See, buyers, they these days, unless it's an investor buyer or somebody who has had experience in remodeling a home and they, buy a 203K loan house or something of that sort, when they show up at a house, they want to feel good about what they're seeing. They want to walk in and it should smell nice and it should look clear and it should have, some pretty flowers out and there should be some good information inside the house. And they can walk into the living room and see the entire space so they can imagine their own possessions in that space. What they don't want is to stand outside and they drive up and they look up at the roof and the roof has spatters on it and streaks on it and all the things that happen with roofs. That doesn't necessarily mean the roof needs to be repaired or replaced, but the roof could have been cleaned. So they're standing there wondering, do I want to buy this house? Roofs cost like $10,000. And that's it. They've made up their mind about the home before they've even walked into the place, just like, there should be pretty flowers in the front yard. So we created a program that we call our Certified Pre-Owned Home Program, which speaks to exactly that issue, to prepare the home in a way that not only makes the buyers feel good about the house when they've walked in and they're looking around, but has evidence to show them that the seller is conscientious and has thought about the age and the health of the hot water heater, and that no, the kitchen sink does not leak, and the commodes in the bathrooms that are used a lot that have loosened up don't wobble, and so on. Josh, when you use the Certified Pre-Owned Home program, how does that affect the ability to attract buyers? And also, how does that affect the seller's ability to get full market value for the home?
So when it comes to speaking with buyers, when you get them into the house, and you have any interest they have any interest whatsoever in providing them with that home inspection report, it allows them to automatically take off those initial worries, those things. And, they can walk to a house and the house looks perfect. But they're still going to worry about what's in what's in the basement, what's in the crawl space, what's in the attic. As someone who has destroyed several suits to climb into the attics, and you can't really tell, but I'm not the smallest person. No, I'm not the smallest crab in the pack. But it is not. No one's. It's 9 degrees outside right now. Most people are not climbing to the attic.
No.
I will sometimes, depending on the circumstance. But having the inspector already have gone in, already have verified that, hey, the furnace in the attic, everything looks great. The insulation looks great. There's not rodents going through the insulation, which is a very common thing we have to address and we negotiate and address. Having that off the table, that is one of it just makes things a lot easier. Because then you're really just dealing with the small things, leaky faucet, little things that most people we can negotiate on within 2 seconds anyway. But one thing I do want to bring up also is when negotiating the highest offer is, okay, we're in the process of actually as someone submitting an offer, we don't have to go in with the idea that, hey, we need to negotiate after due diligence or during due diligence. You already know. They know what the issues are. They know what the problems are. Most of them have already been addressed, if not all of them have been addressed. So whatever you're moving into, there's no point. We're not going to have another conversation, nor do we need to have another conversation. Everyone knows the water heater is 3 years old. Everyone knows the HVAC system was serviced last week. We all know these things. So it's something that we don't have to constantly negotiate. And for people that are not in the real estate, this industry, the one not, kind of in our position, it is a constant negotiation throughout every single day when we're working with clients and working with sellers and working with the other side, the buyers on the other side, or the buyer's agent on the other side, or the seller's agent on the other side. Every day is a little negotiation. So if you can get as many negotiations out the way up front, it makes the rest of this process that much smoother.
And how many home purchases and sales have been lost because the house was not appropriately prepared. Buyers do home inspections, and all of a sudden there's a list of 25 different things that are issues. And if you're going to give somebody $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, you don't want to buy a broken down junk box. You want a house that you can move into, live in, and enjoy. And you know that when you turn on the faucet and the sink in the kitchen, the water's going to run correctly and it's not going to spray all over you.
Yeah, and I want to say something else. For a seller to get all of these inspections done, to get this, what you were talking about, is so important, because just think about it. If I was a buyer and I had certified pre-owned home and I know that everything is cool and groovy and working, it puts that house on this same plane that new construction is. Because people buy new construction because they think, oh, it's brand new, everything works, I don't have to do anything. So if I'm a seller, I'm sure as heck going to get that certified pre-owned home, because now I can be equal to or better than new home construction.
And one thing I want to add about that is, if you just compare new home construction now compared to new home construction really 30 years ago, night and day.
Yeah, right.
And I've talked to, thousands upon thousands of buyers at this point, and sellers. They don't know, they didn't realize that when you go to these older neighborhoods, a builder that said there was 100 lots, one builder will come in and build 10 houses, another builder will come in and build 5 houses, and one builder will build 1 house, and so all the homes were different, and there's variety, so on and so forth. Where now D.R. Horton is going to go in and build 1,000 homes that have 5 floor plans, and they're going to change the different elevations of the front of the home just a little bit for 1,000 homes.
Right, and they go in there and they rape the land. There's no trees.
There's no trees. The lots are all the exact same size,
and they're smaller. They're usually smaller lots.
So the older homes actually have more character, number one.
Absolutely.
Any of the homes, just because the home is new does not mean it can't have a foundation issue later. So whatever, if the selling has occurred on the new house or the old house,
Yes.
So there's a lot of benefits to an older house versus one of these new homes.
Right.
Not saying they're bad, but there's a lot of benefits to buying a home that's just a little bit older.
Right.
As long as that home is prepared so that it's competitive with the houses that are of like kind. This is something that's important too, because if you prepare your home correctly and you have a marketing program that sings the song of your home, tells the story of what a great home it is, what a great community it is, how the schools are, how you're only a 10-minute drive from, I-75, that there's 6 great, amazing restaurants that the guy from the Food Channel has come and visited and put his rubber stamp on. All those kinds of things. All of that helps to say to the buyer, this might be something that we can consider. And that is great. And why a buyer will consider it, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. That's important for the seller to understand the buyer's psychology. But the very last thing, which from the start is what is most on the mind of the home buyer, is what is this house worth? Price. Buyer has gotten an approval from a lender that says that you can buy a house with your income, with a monthly mortgage, interest, principal, taxes, insurance, and other costs that are part of owning a home that are part of your monthly expenses, gas, electricity, etc. You can afford a home for no more than $450,000. That's it. There's a ceiling on the buyer's budget. So the buyer is starting off looking at homes that are $450,000 or less. You have a house that you think is worth 475,000 or 490,000, and you look online and Zillow in their Zestimate says, oh, your house is worth $480,000. You go, whoopee, I want to list my house for $480,000. Sometimes Zillow's estimates are correct. Oftentimes they're not, because it's a mathematical formula. It's an algorithm. It's an AI bot that's considering core elements about your home and general elements about homes like yours, and putting a number out there that it estimates your house might be worth. It doesn't know that 90 days ago you completely refinished the basement, and it has a theater in it, and it has a new bar in it, and it has a kitchen in it, and it has a new full bath in it. It knows you have a basement, but it doesn't know what you did 90 days ago. So your house might actually be worth $480,000. But you have to know and understand how houses comparable to it in your narrow community with elements that are exactly like yours are actually selling for. And that $450,000 buyer is not going to be able to buy that home. So now you have to find buyers that are looking for a bargain and can pay up to $500,000. And if they like what it is that you've done, price drives everything. How many times, guys, has the seller said, well, listen, just list the house for, this is what I want. And people will just make an offer.
Well, all the time.
They don't have
So
to.
many times.
Yes. They don't realize the buyers don't have to anymore. They were the last house on the, in the neighborhood, last house in the subdivision, last house in the city. It'd be a different conversation, but buyers don't have to do that anymore.
And they won't. And as a matter of fact, because there's enough homes on the market, they won't even come visit their home. So if nobody comes to see your house and there's no potential offers, there's nothing to discuss. Your house just sits there. And they complain because nobody's come to see my home. And it's true, because I'm sorry, your house is not worth $480,000. It's worth $440,000. And we should probably list it for $430,000 to get people to say, oh my gosh, that's cheap for that house. You can't negotiate nothing, but you can negotiate an offer, which is what you then need to do.
Yep.
Yep. So how then do we get a seller to understand that the numbers that they see online, or the number they saw for the house around the corner, that was 1,000 square feet bigger with 2 extra bedrooms and a swimming pool, and sold for $515,000, is not the same as your house. That's 1,000 square feet smaller with 2 fewer bedrooms and doesn't have a pool.
It has a cliff in the backyard that slopes into a ravine. Yeah.
I mean, you have to show them all those comps, and you have to, sometimes you even might have to, if the house, is still available, you need to bring them into the house to show them, well, this is why this house is $480,000, and you can see what this house has that your house doesn't have. Sometimes you have to do that if they cannot get it from all the paper and all the slides and everything that we show them.
Right. And that's really one of the biggest ways. So, I mean, you should see our CMA, our comparable market analysis, the binder that we put together for our listing appointments, because the amount of work to really be able to really see what this home is worth compared to all the other homes that are currently being sold, currently being listed, currently coming on the market, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of time and effort and money involved to finding buyers, to marketing the home, to getting that home sold. So we put a lot of time and effort, and if we can sell it for higher, that's always our goal. If we sell it for above market value, that's always our goal. But we want to make sure the seller can get as the maximum amount of money that they can in this market. So that being said, we show them the homes that are currently have sold, the ones that are better, more bedrooms, so larger square footage, finished basement. We show the homes that are comparable, that are about the same as theirs, and then we show the homes that are hey, I know your home will never sell for that lower price. Those homes as well, so we can get a good idea of a range of what the home really should sell for. And then on top of that, I like to really make sure we reiterate the why. Why are you moving in the first place? Because very rarely, again, are people moving just because they like the home over there. I've had that conversation before. They like the home next door, but mostly it's because there's some bigger reason to give the 2.5% interest rate. There's something bigger, more important in their life at that time.
Right.
So all those things have to align. All those things, I've had a lot of successful closings with buyers and sellers, and only when all those things align are when people are walking out and you shake your hand and you set for the next day you're going to go have dinner together, and they want you to see their kids. They invite you back to the house. We work really hard. I work really hard to make sure all those things align.
Mm-hmm. That's why when you're making the decision to prepare to sell your home, you really need to have a team that can be brought in that can help you to recognize all of the things that are true about today's market, things that you can anticipate, and how to set up a complete program. See, a complete program is you need a really full, clear pricing analysis based on your home in your community and maybe your zip code, but too much wider than that. And now you're comparing apples to oranges. So you have to be very clear and very specific about what your home is about and how your home compares with other homes that are just like yours. Then you have the ability to see not only what a house sold for, but what houses are being listed for and what the activity is, what houses are pending because they've gotten offers. Your house has to not only fit in that context, but it has to stand up at the top of the pile. It has to shine. So you need that pricing analysis, which comes with the discussion of setting up a certified pre-owned home program, getting this house set so that when buyers walk in, not only does it feel good, smell good, look good, but they have the evidence that there's a great degree of certainty about the quality of this home, that the windows aren't rattling, that the home, your hot water heater hasn't been leaking for the last 2 months. You've changed the filter in your heat and air system. That the boots on the roof were changed just 2 years ago and they're good for another decade. All of those kinds of things that create assurance and certainty about your home, because buyers need to shop based on some of the key ideas that we talked about. And if you have a team that has the ability to help you set up all of those elements for your home, and that home gets a lot of exposure, a marketing plan that really fits telling the story about why your home is so good and better than everything else out there, those first 7 to 14 days are critical. If you get a lot of people coming through your home, you're going to get a lot of offers. And you only need one good offer to negotiate to get it done. And then you better be prepared, because when you do that, typically we get homes sold in under 30 days. So you need, as a buyer, a plan to take the next step, because 30 days after that, bye-bye, your home is all packed up and you're gone. So, okay, why are you buying? It's just like asking a seller, why are you selling? That's where you start, don't you, Josh?
Every time. And I like to ask, I know a lot of people ask, when are you looking to move? I like to ask, why are you looking to move right now versus, now versus next year versus last year? Like what has occurred to make now special? I always ask that question, because there's a reason why anybody does anything, for good or bad. So I want to make sure that everything aligns with that motivation. So again, that we get to, we really just solve that problem.
And the checklist is it's pretty repetitive. Different buyers have, very specific things that are germane to them or their family.
I can kind of go over a few, if you have to. I can probably go over most of the ones that are kind of similar, the same.
And what are those?
So I've been renting forever. I'm finally ready to move. I'm finally ready to, build something and have something usually for my family, for a future generation, or just not be a renter anymore. There's a lot of people age 50 and 60 who's never owned a home, and had plenty of opportunity if they were around the right person, if they had the knowledge to do it. So I get that a lot. The kids are outgrowing the rental house. That's a big one. I finally feel like I can settle down. I finally like the area enough. I've traveled all over the country, but I finally feel like Atlanta's kind of where I want to be now. That happens a lot. Those are really the main ones. There are times where, hey, I really want to move. I made sure I got my credit score. I just need help with the down payment. If I figure out the down payment, we're good to go. So those are usually the conversations, and then people want to be closer to family. Family getting either a little bit older, or they want to be closer to the kids want to be closer to the parents, or vice versa.
A lot of people move because of schools too.
Schools.
They'll buy that first townhouse, a young couple, and then a couple of years later they have some kids. And once they start looking at the schools, it might not be where they need to be. So now they got to sell that townhouse and move into, another home in a good school district. A lot of people are like that.
And I even had a conversation, which kind of connects to one of our guarantees, but had a conversation with a client today. So we have a guarantee that if someone buys a home with us and they don't like it for any reason for up to 2 years, we'll buy it back or sell it for free. That's one of our biggest guarantees. It helps a lot of people, especially for people that are new to an area or don't feel comfortable with an area. But there's also covers things that they have no control over. So young lady I was working with, I got into a townhouse. She was there for about a year and realized, hey, I just need more space. I need more space. That's all there is to it. I thought I could be right where all the action is. I want to be able to go to shopping and all the stores and the mall and but she realized, hey, when I was there, I never went there anyway. So she needed more space. So we got her into a house, a detached house. We're actually closing tomorrow. But I was explaining to her, it's just a phase of life. It's just, hey, you want a house, you need a house, you need somewhere that you can call your own, which was the townhouse, the first home. Then you realize, hey, you need more space for whatever reason. Family showing up, you have kids, you have a husband, so on and so forth. And eventually, even the house you just bought now, it's going to be too big, and you're going to be going back down. It's just a phase of life. So we try to make sure that we're there to help during those phases of life and all the random things that pop up during those phases of life.
They have a core checklist, many of them. Most people do. If it's, just a single person, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome may be perfect for them because they live alone. They may have guests coming in. They'd like to use one of those bedrooms as an office. Once a month they have friends over and they have a party. But a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome that has a nice ground floor and an open kitchen, and that's quite sufficient. But many people, particularly when there's children involved or when there's two families involved, there's a family, family with children and older parents who have sold their home, and they want to now combine and have a house that gives them, in essence, 2 living spaces, but they don't necessarily want to have a duplex. Now they're really considering must have a basement. The basement must have at least the basic plumbing for us to put a kitchen and a bathroom in if it isn't already there. We must have X number of bedrooms. But we still have 3 kids at home, and we have 2 cats and a dog and a half and a parrot. And we want the kids to be able to stay and play at home. So we want a pretty decent flat backyard and a fence, and on and on. And so it can get fairly detailed. And so now you begin to look at houses from the standpoint of the must have. I got to have at least 4 bedrooms because I need an office. If there's an office space on the main floor, or if there's an extra bedroom that could be turned into an office on the main floor, okay, then we can have, 3 bedrooms upstairs, but we have to have at least 4 bedrooms and preferably a bedroom and an office. And we absolutely have to have 3 bathrooms because I do not want everybody arguing over who's going to take a shower. And we definitely want to have a basement because we love to have parties and entertain, and having a great big walkout basement where we can have fun and have parties and have someday I can have that little movie theater down there. Those are definite wants. But it would be nice if it also had in the basement a kitchen. But I could always put one in if we had to. And so on. You follow? Folks, when you're thinking about buying that home, location, price, schools, and then features, and they all have to work together. And then things that get as narrow as, hey, do I want a community that has swim and tennis in it? And if it does it have a homeowners association? Do I want to live in a community with a homeowners association? These are all things to consider. And of course, when Josh and our buyers team is working with buyers, or Stephanie, who's out there working with buyers, those questions, not only do they come up in the very beginning to plan, but now you're out there and you're actually seeing homes that have those features. Now what happens?
So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to answer that with a story. I have a lot of stories, so it is what it is.
It's because you sell a lot of houses and work with a lot of people, so you have a lot of stories. Yes.
So what happens is I'm working with this lady. She says she grew up in a really, really tight house, 1 bathroom, 2-bedroom house up in north. I'm not sure if it was New York or something, but she grew up in a really, really tiny house. And so she finally was at the point, she rented for years, and she said, I want to buy the biggest house I could buy. She had a decent income, and she was pre-approved, for a decent number. And this is back before COVID. And what happened is I find this 6,000, or it's actually 4,500 with an unfinished basement, but 4,500 square foot house. And it's only her and her 2 kids. And we walk up to the house, and she's loving it. We walk to the house, and we walk to about the 3rd floor. There were 3 floors up top, and we to the 3rd floor. Her kids are at the very bottom of the floor. She's in the family room or the living room, where the kids are. And she looks down, and she looks at me and says, this house is too big. It's too big. You know, so it's just how things evolve as you walk through those things that you felt like that were the best things in the world.
Right.
Were I have to have, and then realize that, hey, maybe I don't like cleaning, hardwood floors. Some people prefer carpet. You realize you get there and realize, hey, that's a lot of carpet. One stain is going to destroy everything. It's going to look horrible. I want hardwoods, even though I originally said I was completely fine with carpet. Next door neighbors.
Yeah.
You can't control them. But there's some things we can talk about seller side. But on the buyer side, you need to talk to the neighbors. You need to look at the neighbors. And that's also one thing that Zillow's estimates can't show.
You're right.
Neighbors.
You're right. Also, I was going to say something when I was actually really actively working with buyers. I would tell them all the negative things about it, because I say, you know what? You're gonna, unless this is the last house you're ever gonna buy until you die, you're gonna want to sell this house. And you, darling, might love the idea that there's a railroad track behind your backyard because you grew up in Chicago and the L was right out your window, and so you love it. But I'm telling you, that's going to be a major negative. And I want you to be a client for life, right? So I want you to come back and tell me, Steph, that we got to sell the house. I don't want you to have a house that's already going to be negative to 85% of the people that look at this house. So I'm telling you this now, right? I'm laying this out for you. Ultimately, it is your decision whether or not you buy the house with the train in the backyard. But it's my job to tell you the positives and the negatives about a house when you get ready to buy it. And so I would always do that. I was not, this isn't HGTV where you walk in and say, oh, isn't it lovely? This is great. Look at that. Let's buy this house. No, that's not how you service a client properly. So I just wanted to get that in there.
I expect to talk to my clients and see, their kids grow up, and I expect to have a relationship where that's a possibility. I don't expect that after we're done, after we close, that we never want or care to see each other ever again.
Right.
I know for a fact, absolute fact, I've been doing this for a decent amount of time, that I have people that I sold on house one that I still go, they passed away since, but I can go have dinner with their grandkids. The grandkids were there when I was, working with them.
Listen, I went out to lunch with somebody this weekend. I sold her a house 24 years ago. Her kid is now 27 in medical school. Her kid was 3 years old when we were looking for a house. So, and I get Christmas cards from people I sold houses to, 20, 30 years ago. And that's the kind of business you want to have.
I don't think that business exists as much anymore. I think it's besides the point, but I don't think it's as we have really made a name for not just second mile service, but making that personal touch, because we don't disappear.
Right.
We do not disappear. So.
Yeah, it's called having a client for life.
Having a client for life.
And clients oftentimes become friends. And that, is from the real estate professional sales and marketing side. Yes, this is a business, and this is a tough business. This is a business of big dollars, and it's a business of, life-changing experience.
It's the most expensive thing that anybody buys in their life, usually.
Most often.
That touches also every single part of their family.
Yes.
Not most, not some, like every single part and every element, everything that you hold dear is, in a room somewhere in the house, including that little child. So it touches a lot of things.
So let's jump to, if we understand all of those, or at least know that these are things that you as a home buyer really need to be thinking about, and that a good real estate professional with a team that knows about all these different things and can help you implement what you need. One of the key members of that team has to be a lender. And the lender has to have a range of programs that can help you fit your finances so that you can actually purchase that home. And a lot of it comes down to that number. It's not so much what you pay for the house, because if you bought a house for $400,000 and you put 3% down, your monthly expense would be X. But if you bought that same $400,000 house and you put $150,000 down, the money that you earned off of the sale of your previous home, now you only have a $250,000 mortgage, and your monthly expense on the home is going to be Y. So you have to really know and understand the math of your pocketbook. And so you have to look at all of the different finances, and that's what we clearly recommend you work on, over and above all of the things that you're thinking about. How many bedrooms, how many baths? Because without having the money, you're not going to have that house. And sometimes you have an okay income, but there's no money in the bank. So now there's lots of different ways that you have to think about getting the capital necessary to buy your investment. Now, you
I
can
mean,
do
that's really the first thing that people should be doing, is talking to a lender. I mean, we have a conversation with them and we can sense out whether or not they're going to be viable to get a loan, but we're not lenders. We're the surgeon, they're the anesthesiologist. I always used to say that. I can't profess to know everything there is to know about the lending business. That is not my job. But I work as a team, and you need to talk to, whoever the lender is, whoever I was working with at the time, because they're a trusted advisor, and we're going to be able to work together to get this done. And that's like priority number one. I don't even want to show them a house. I never showed them a house until I knew what the lender said they could afford. Because if they think in their head they can afford a $400,000 house, right? And some inexperienced agent runs out and shows them a $400,000 house, and then the lender comes back and says they can't afford a $400,000 house. They're at $300,000. You go try to take somebody from 400,000, right, Josh, to 300. It's like, it's like looking at Louboutin shoes and then going to Walmart. What? You want me to buy that? No, that ain't going to happen. And so now you burst the bubble. They're all disappointed, and, they'll stay a renter. Oh, I'll just rent. And then you got to get them over that hump. So knowing what they can afford is number one.
I have to add one more thing I do with that is when I meet with people, I start off by we'll online we'll get an idea of what you're looking for, and we'll just first second poke online and say, okay, based on how much you want to spend monthly, we actually calculate how much you want to spend monthly. This is how much your payment's going to be, and these are the homes. This is the price range available to you. So true story, 500. I need 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms on 2 acres. With at least 4,000 square feet for $400,000 in Dunwoody. And it's like,
yeah, like, I want to look like Wonder Woman. It ain't gonna happen.
The math is not mathing. There's burnt down houses that cost more in Dunwoody for that price, and that's just how it is. So
totally
you could have done that in 1985.
Right. Found a great deal, but so we have to get them into some reality, and I think the lender, or I know the lender, is just a form of reality for them to know what is the best options available for me in that realm of reality.
We work with a home loan group called Annie Mac Home Mortgages, and they have specifically designed exclusive programs that work to help sellers to sell homes and buyers to buy homes through specialized programs. So let me give you an example. They have a program, it's called Rate Relief. That is when a seller has a house that they want to get full market value for, and they know that the buyer is going to need a certain amount of assistance, seller paid closing costs to purchase that home. But there's also the issue of you've got the kind of home where you're on the cusp where a buyer might be able to initially afford that house, but the monthly expenses are tough. The rate relief program allows the seller working with a lender to pay the costs up front to reduce the monthly interest rate on the buyer's loan so that they can drop that loan, let's say from 6.5% to 4.99%, or do a 3-year buy down and start at 2.5% and then 3.5% and then 4.5%, which saves the buyers thousands and gives them the ability to manage their finances. You want to know that there are programs out there that the buyer can take advantage of and that the seller can help you with to make those kinds of programs work. Just like, and we hear this more and more often because there are a lot of younger people who initially thought, well, heck, we'll just rent. Buying houses, it's too much commitment. But as times change and you get a little bit older and your jobs change and maybe you now have a family, the interest in owning a home changes, but your costs have exceeded your ability to save. And although you can afford the monthly expense, you don't have the cash necessary to actually purchase the home. So now you need to look at programs and talk to a lender that has programs that let you buy houses for zero down, help you to get down payment assistance. Guys, how do you manage a buyer that has likely they have the monthly, but they don't have the cash up front, or they have to manipulate what that monthly is going to be by using the cash up front? And of course, you get the lender involved, but what's the thought process and how do you aim the buyer toward looking at programs so that there's alternatives to just going back and renting again?
So what I do is we go over the basics. It's very surprising that, well, I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but a lot of people don't know the entire process of buying a home. They don't know I would say, auxiliary costs, things like home inspections, appraisals. Sometimes you pay for of course, the insurance, but they don't know about all the parts and pieces. So first off, I get an inventory of, okay, what do you have? What do you know? And then we go through the entire process of, your down payment. How much down payment are you going to need based on your credit score and what loan program you're going to go with? Do you have that amount? Do you not have that amount? Okay. Here are some loan programs. Are you a hero? Or are you part of a heroes program where you say nurse, firefighter, EMS, rescue? Again, I like to say anyone who's running in when everyone else is running out. Are you one of those programs? So there's different loan programs available specifically for them. But again, idea of where they are financially right now, and then find out ways to patch the holes in between. So again, if I need to get down payment covered, if I need to get closing costs covered, even there's ways to get money from 401ks to apply to earnest money. So we just kind of go through the entire process, see where there's, I wouldn't say holes in the ship, and just through experience and through study and through work with everyone else on the team, we find ways to patch those holes so they can get to the closing. I like to think I like to think I'm more like a glorified, sometimes not so glorified, but glorified problem solver, because there's a lot of elements of not just finances that they need help getting through in order to be able to buy that house, especially when it's their first house and they've never been through the process.
As you're walking through the marketplace this spring and summer is the hot time for many people to want to buy homes because if they're moving for schools, they want to get out of the school district that they were in to get their children into the new school district at the beginning of the school year. and maybe be in the community a couple of weeks before school starts so that kids and you have the chance to meet people in the neighborhood, you know, you know, get to know the families, and kids get to know each other and play. Um, the summertime tends to be the time in the marketplace when there's the highest amount of activity and there's the greatest amount of two-sided bargaining power for houses that have not been set up for buyers to appreciate them, to be willing to pay full market value, no matter what you think, because there's a lot more houses on the market. Buyers have other choices. But buyers, when sellers have a home that has really done justice to that house, has brought that house up into what it should be, which is in moving condition, and that everything around it meets your criteria, you have to be really clear about what you're willing to give in order to gain, so that the negotiation enables both of you to come to a number and a cost that makes it so that the seller can move from that home with what they need to take their next step, and the buyer has the ability to move into that home and live in that house comfortably, financially and emotionally and personally, for as long as they choose to be there. So those two pieces really have to come together. Buyers rule because they have the money, but without the sellers putting that great looking product on the market, buyers wouldn't have anything to buy. So it's really two groups that need to find a way to appreciate each other's goals and needs. And that's where we step in to make that a closed circle. I mean, we've all gone to closings where the buyers and the sellers hate each other. They don't even want to be in the same room. But similarly, we've all gone to closings where, because we've been able to help them both understand one another's goals and work together to achieve them, they're hugging and they're passing keys and they're, hey, can I come back and see the house after you've redecorated it? And it's a different atmosphere, right? Josh, your sound is off.
And one thing I realized, you're right, and one thing I realized that we haven't really spoken about is the other agent. So yes, we spoke about us representing the seller, us representing the buyer, but when choosing an agent, the importance of choosing an agent that is willing and able to negotiate, an agent who's willing and able to kind of see in between. And yes, you need to represent your client. Yes, you need to get the best for your client. But I can speak directly. And again, if anyone wants stories, I can provide plenty of stories. But where everything was great until their agent showed up. The buyer and the seller, for whatever, they got there early. We're having a good conversation. Everything is fine until their agent shows up. It just makes it so much more difficult to solve. The issues that were not issues for their seller, or their issues that were not issues for their buyer, became so big that deals fell apart. Just from a personality point of view, let me say it that way, or from an experience point of view. So it's really important, and I'm not just speaking about us and our team. I'm just saying for anybody to really put the time and effort and figure out who you're thinking about working with, because there are times when I've spoken with sellers and said, "Hey, just because of how this agent is responding, just because of how this agent is, filling out this paperwork partly or not completely or not clearly, I don't recommend, even though you're losing a little bit of money, I recommend going with the other offer, because if it's going to be a problem now, it's definitely going to be a problem when we're under contract." So, yeah.
So the hope and the goal is that on both sides, whoever the real estate professional is that is representing the buyer or representing the seller, they are well-trained, well-schooled, thoughtful, good problem solvers don't look to pick a fight, aren't going to yell at you because their dog bit them in the knee this morning, and that they know and understand what's critical on both sides to work to find solutions to problems. Because otherwise, you're right. We just look at our buyers and say, um, the seller may be, okay, but their team and the whole process around them, or they don't have a team, they just have an agent that's doing too much or has only sold one house in the last year. All of those things, you say, you know what? This is a nice house, but if we take another 2 weeks, we'll find a house that's just as nice and maybe even better.
I've said that personally. I've said that personally to buyers. And I can promise everyone on this, I can promise every client I've ever talked to, it's not my favorite thing to do is walk around 95-degree heat on a Friday afternoon and look at the houses. So for me to say that, I really am seeing something that you don't want to walk into.
So closing thought is, number one, when you believe that it's the moment that you should be thinking about buying and or selling a home, start with your basic plan with the number one question, which is, why am I buying or why am I selling? Do I need to? Must I? Do I want to? And what is most important? And holy moly, there's all these things that have to be done in order for me to get it done. What do I do? Find a professional with a team that can bring all of the people and programs and responses and answers to all of the questions that come up, so that when you take that step to put that house on the market, or you take that step to take that cash offer, or you take that step to be a buyer, and you get into a situation where you are in the kind of community where there might be multiple offers on homes, and you need a loan program that elevates you above everybody else, like our Cash to Keys program, that lets a buyer, in essence, make an offer as if it's for cash because the seller guarantees the purchase of the home. The lender, rather, guarantees the purchase of the home. All of those things in a team. And when you have that put together and you have a team, then you can afford to sell the house or buy your next home. And comes the weekend, you can call Stephanie and you can say, hey, Stephanie, what's totally fun and cool going on around Metro Atlanta that we can have fun with, because we bought the house and we're happy and we want to go out and we want to have food. So Steph, give us a quick roundup. Snuck you in there, huh? Give us
I knew it was coming. All right. Okay. I'm gonna go through this at warp speed. All right. So
All right.
Cobb County, we have the NAACP Juneteenth celebration, 19th to the 21st at the Marietta Square. We have Foodie Week, June 20th to the 27th, all through all Cobb County and a lot of restaurants. In Cherokee, we have the Georgia Outdoor Festival for all you guys that like to hunt and fish and do those camping outdoor things. That's the 20th, the 21st at Veterans Park. In Gwinnett County, we have the circus at the Gwinnett Place Mall and the Rotary Club show that's in Swanee. And then in Fulton County, we have the Juneteenth Atlanta in Atlanta at Piedmont Park with a parade and everything. And also the World Cup matches are going on. So you want to check that out. And none of that stuff says anything to you and you want to get the heck out of Dodge, go up to Blue Ridge, Georgia, rent a cabin, go hike a waterfall, and rent a pontoon boat on Lake Blue Ridge. And that's what I got.
And all of those are, if we're working all weekend helping people buy and sell homes, we'll just wave at the folks going by. Josh, any parting thoughts for buyers and sellers?
More just plan. Take some time, plan. This is a big investment. It's a big time. It's a big time sink. Things that it requires planning. So getting in touch, reaching out, we can help you plan out and just make sure you think of some things that you probably haven't thought about. Just to make sure whenever the time is right, you're not trying to pick up the pieces then and figuring it out then. So
100%. Make a plan. Plans are good. So I want to thank you all for sitting through this. And I hope that it was useful. A lot of what we've spoken about applies in any market, but it very much particularly applies now where there's so much competition and the market is hot and prices are all over the map and interest rates are up and down. So that, as Josh said, having a plan, critically important. If you liked what you heard today and you'd like to hear more and you feel that you'd like to just talk through what the next steps might be, call us, text us. We'll be happy to get with you and give you all of the information that you need to really start thinking through and working on that plan. And if you like what was in the podcast today, and you're on YouTube, click on the like. Say, I like it. And if you want to hear more every week talking about all of the different ways in which you can be successful at owning or selling or investing in real estate, go ahead and follow us. And all of the things that we talk about will be there and available for you for whenever you want it. So for Josh and for Stephanie and for myself, I want to thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again. And, go to one of those wonderful Juneteenth festivals. It's fun and it's elegant and it's usually got great food, wonderful people, really wonderful time of the year. So come back, see us again next week on ATL Home and Market. Thank you. Have a great weekend and a great week ahead.
have a good